it feels like so many people who are not like completely online, they're always trying to come up with ideas, and it's almost always a physical product. Like, I don't know if that's because they experience physical reality constantly.
Yeah.
And just in the business that I'm in, I'm like, why would you do that? Like, your margins are destroyed. Like, unless you have a purpose to like create products to heal people, that's like a greater purpose. When people are just like, I want to be an entrepreneur, and they start coming up with ideas, I'm always just like, why do you pick like the lowest margin, most competitive, like highest most need of like cash to build that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting, you actually spelled this out for me really well once. We were outside of True Food, and you gave me like your whole thesis of like the direction you think things are going with like info products and apps and experiences. Like virtual experiences stuck with me when you said that. And then I kind of like work it into my coaching, because I have one-on-one coaching, I have group coaching, and then I have like do-it-yourself online courses. And all I've been thinking of recently is like, how do I turn all of these into a virtual experience? Like it's an experiential thing that is very transformative, that you can also continue beyond the length of the thing. So if I coach somebody for 90 days, I'm always like, yeah, my goal is that like at the end of 90 days, you'll just have learned what you need to learn to like ride off into the sunset, and you can come back to the experience if you want to. You know what I mean? Like the digital experience is a cool way to look at product creation. Dude,
100%. And we've been 5 years away from virtual reality for 20 years. But I will say it today, my guess is we are actually 5 years away now.
Yeah.
Like now that Apple's fully in the fucking game, like we are actually 5 years away. So investing, doubling down, tripling down on it. And especially when my friend George Mack, shout out to George, he'll be on the podcast shortly, but he gave a stat to me, and he's like, dude, the baby boomers are dying now and retiring. What does that mean? It means it's something like $10 trillion of wealth is about to pass down to our generation who are native on the internet. And to put it in that terms, when you think about crypto, when you think about VR, when you think about podcasts or media and whatever, and you realize that the biggest generational transfer of wealth ever is going to happen from people who have held their wealth outside of the internet to people who are native internet users. Like to be positioned into this place, into this digital media, thinking about the internet, building in the internet is fucking insane.
I didn't even think of it like that, dude. That's crazy. Because you're talking about like inheritance, right? Yeah, it's so true. Because like for me, like there's no chance in hell you could get me to like open a 401k.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, why would I do that? I could literally hire a team to build a done for you drop shipping store or TikTok shop or something, and like multiply my money by exponentials. Not like, ooh, I might get 6 to 8% year over year compounding like Tony Robbins style, you know? For sure. I would never do that.
Yeah, it's so funny because so many people in the corporate world love 401ks because it's like, ooh, it saves on taxes. It's like, having a business will change taxes in your mind completely.
Totally.
100% completely like reconfigure how you think about taxes more than anything else in the entire world.
Yeah.
I have this saying that's like, you're not actually a citizen of America until you have like a LLC or an S corp. Because then you get to play the game. Like you're actually a viewer in the game until you're an operator in the game. And it's like having one of these things, one of these different tax things it changes the way you play the game, because how you think about income, how you think about your time for money completely shifts, because it's not just 30% burned up front. It's, you know, if you're bad at accounting, 30% is burned later.
Yeah.
A year and a half later.
Yeah.
That's 30% you can sit in a money market.
Yeah.
And get 8% on.
Right.
Or you can do what I do and buy JPEGs with it, which is fucking not worked out super well, but it's fine. You know, it's worked out well sometimes.
Well, and also you have the idea of like, if you invest in 10 different things and one of them 10Xs, it covers the rest of that whole thing. But, you know, and it's true because like some of the coaching I do will be people who want to get into e-commerce. So I have several clients right now that are 9-to-5ers that are like, I actually want to try to do like the coaching thing or start an online course or something. And we have, it's astonishing to me and people like you and I who have like always played the entrepreneurial game, where you have these light bulb moments with someone who's been working in 9 to 5 since they got out of college. So they're like, they're in school their whole life, and then they go to higher education, like college, whatever. And then they have a job. Now, let's say they're 30 and they've always had like a 401k and health benefits and the paycheck and everything. And just helping them see, like, you understand that everything your employer is giving you, salary, benefits, the whole thing, they're giving to you because they're making exponentially more than they are giving you with your time and your effort. It's not like they're giving you $100,000 a year because they make $101,000 off of you. They are exponentially increasing the money that they paid you because they are the business owner, because they own the chessboard, the whole thing. And really, it's so I love it. I love helping people have these breakthrough moments, but they really do start to see reality through a different lens. Everything for me, health and wellness, business coaching, relationship coaching. I do men's coaching, right? It's like you go to the optometrist or whatever, and it's like, how does this lens look? And then they switch it. What about this one? And switch it. What about this one? And that's the whole like reality creation piece, is like your reality is completely dependent on the lens through which you're viewing it.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's where you have, like, if you've been in a 9-to-5 position your whole life, you tend to think is growth linearly.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm a marketing assistant at this company and I'm getting $100,000 a year. Growth to you might be like, well, if I move to this other company, I can work the same numbers of hours and they're going to give me 20% more. But they can't think in their head, like, what would you have to do to 10x your income in the next 12 months?
Yeah.
It completely shatters their reality.
It's not even possible.
It's not even possible. Yeah.
It's funny that you're describing like the marketing assistant making like that amount of money, because that was legitimately what I was doing at one point, and it was just such a bad fit. And my dad was an entrepreneur, so I like kind of existed in that environment. And the whole time I'm just like, this is fucking stupid. Like I'm looking at my boss's boss, and they're making like $400K a year, and I'm just like, that's not very much. And they trade all of their time to live in meetings.
Yeah.
And so nothing looked good. And I remember I had a discussion with like a career counselor, like, well, what would be your next step? What position do you want? And I was like, I think corporate strategy would be really fun for me. Like, I think I'm strategic. Like, I'd really like to think on the global scale of how we like, put these pharmaceutical businesses and how we compete and pick trials. And they're like, okay, cool. Yeah, you can apply for that job in like 25 years. And I was like, so I'm not going to have fun at like a career for 25 years. All right. Before we get too far, Justin Nault, welcome to the fucking podcast. Very excited to have you here. I'm very curious about how you would introduce yourself.
Oh man, I should know this. I should have like an elevator pitch, right?
Well, I can start. So really into calories in, calories out.
Yes. This is the lens through which I view all of reality. Yeah. We are closed energy systems.
Yes. We're gas engines, not diesel.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. No, I think fundamentally, I'm a professional trickster. That's what it is. No, I really try to help people see that viewing health and wellness through a completely different lens, right? So most people are coming to me. If you were to look me up online, you'll find I heal damaged metabolisms for a living. That's really what I do. The majority of what I'm doing is helping people heal their metabolisms and reach a place of optimal health and wellness when everything else they have ever tried has failed. People come to me with very strange autoimmune conditions or chronic conditions that doctors haven't been able to help them with, or medication has made it worse or whatever. It's kind of like a last-ditch effort where they're like kind of having this waking up moment of like, yeah, everything I've been told about my health and wellness is not true. I keep doing what everyone's telling me to do and things keep getting worse. So generally speaking, I heal damaged metabolisms. I help people improve their metabolic health, increase their metabolic rate. I help their bodies create more energy. Everything I do is done through the lens of abundance rather than restriction. So sarcastically, calories in, calories out is all about restriction.
Yeah.
Just eat less food and you will be healthy. I think it's fundamentally some of the most damaging advice that has ever been given to humans in the history of the world. I think it's that bad to tell people that eating less food is the way to optimal health. I'm the opposite of that. But the reason why I say professional trickster is because Clovis, very openly, and for 250 episodes of my own podcast, I'm very clear in the fact that this is a Trojan horse. You're going to come to me and you're going to say, I need to lose 50 pounds. And I go, fantastic. I'm going to help you lose 50 pounds. And then once you're in the door, everything I do starts with personal development. And we move into this place of the first thing we need to discover is how far out of alignment you are. Why is it that you have created a life for yourself in which you're not happy? And that's the root cause. The chronic health conditions, if you're overweight or medically obese or whatever term you want to say, right? It's like I've never met someone who is heavily struggling with health and wealth, with health and wellness, who is 100% happy with every aspect of their life, you know? And they may not even know. So a lot of people come to me and they don't really know what they're looking for. They're just like, I watched one of your videos and it made me cry. And I'm like, whoa, okay, we gotta dig into that. Let's pull that thread. But it's, generally speaking, it's usually through the lens of metabolic health is where we start.
I definitely want to dive into metabolism because it's something I'm really interested in right now. And I also think you have like a very, I wouldn't say, it's hard to frame because it sounds like a contrarian view of health would be like a term to say, or like a unique view of health. But I actually don't think those words are true. I think it's more that we live in kind of a really bad system. And I do want to get into the history of that system with you as well. But before that, into your personal history, I vaguely remember you telling me a story at dinner one time where one of the things that led you down this path, because you were in Nashville doing music, performing, like living a very, I think, a life that a lot of people would be jealous of or like look at as beautiful, and it wasn't really serving you. And then like your niece or some like young child in your life was sick. And could you like walk through that story?
Yeah, I have a niece named Savannah who is, I believe she's 9 years old now. That was my brother's second child. He had a stepdaughter as well, and then he had his son, and then Savannah was born. And Savannah was born having over 300 seizures a day. So these were called burst suppression seizures. She was having grand mal seizures. But within the first 7 days of life, like my whole family was basically then living in the pediatric ICU. They did over $1 million in testing on her. She was hooked up to every machine imaginable. They put my brother and his wife on antidepressants like right away because they're like, yeah, she wasn't supposed to live past 3 years. Her life expectancy was less than 3 years. And they thought it was epilepsy at first.
They're like, here, don't feel.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, you're going to need to...
It's going to be rough.
Stunt all of your emotions immediately, right?
Wow.
So, and I had just become just like a hobby. I became a nutritional therapist. I was just really into fitness my whole life, and then started getting into nutrition around my mid-20s. And I was in the music industry and drinking all the time. I had just done a reality TV show, and like that was really where I was like, I don't think I actually like this thing I'm doing. So there was this whole kind of like identity crisis and shift happening around when Savannah was born. And so a lot of people don't realize that the ketogenic diet in a medical scenario is used to treat epileptic seizures in children and infants, toddlers, even teenagers, right? There's a whole group called the Charlie Foundation, and they do this. They specialize in ketogenic diet for seizures. So the first thing whenever there's seizures...
Sorry, I'm just going to pop in real quick. Sorry to distract you, but it's so funny because so many, like keto's now it's so far adopted that like Panera has keto bowls and stuff now. You know what I mean? Like so far down the mainstream, and it's like, but it's like not actually the keto diet. Like before the fast that I most recently did, like I wanted to go keto first to like pull over. And just for people to know, it's like the medical keto diet actually sucks. Like a lot of people like, oh fuck yeah, keto, I'm gonna eat bacon. It's like, no, it's a shitty diet, dude. To eat 75% of your calories from fat, 20 from protein, and 5% from carbohydrates is like a very disgusting diet. Like it's not enjoyable. But if it's medically necessary, then it can be really helpful.
Yeah. It's ridiculously difficult. We can talk about this again after, like, we'll bookmark it. But yeah, when I first found out about keto, I spent 12 weeks in nutritional ketosis by blood draw daily. Like, I know I was doing keto. Yeah. And it's not fun. It sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, with Savannah, like, whenever there's seizures, the first thing they think is, like, this must be epileptic. So they actually drilled a hole in her stomach. There's something called a G tube. Savannah couldn't eat. She couldn't drink. It's like, this child is dying for sure. So they drill a hole in her stomach. They put her on this G tube, and then they feed her formula through the tube. Subsidized by our tax dollars in all pediatric ICUs around the country, the way this insurance game works, which is a criminal organization, there is a formula called Keto-Cal. I believe it's by Gerber. I could be getting that wrong, but it's just literally called Keto-Cal, and it is a ketogenic baby formula. Keep in mind, dude, Savannah is now like weeks old.
Yeah.
You don't get more fragile than this child that is dying with a hole in her stomach, right?
Yeah.
So in
a place where it's super sterile, so she has no natural gut bacteria to fight against infection. Like
no sunlight,
no nothing. You're underneath, super stressful environment.
Totally. Yeah. So I read the ingredients on Keto-Cal, and it's like you're saying, right? People, keto, I get to eat bacon, whatever the thing, right? In the mainstream medical community, if we say like keto is high fat, low carb, that's all they know. There's no attention paid to food quality. So I look at the ingredients. It's high fat, low carb for sure. It's seed oils and artificial sweeteners. It's like soybean oil. Like
why are you sweetening something that a toddler is getting? Like,
dude, it's not even touching taste buds.
Yeah, what the actual fuck?
It's going into a tube.
Yeah.
You know? So this was like the and I don't want to use the cliche term of like I was red pilled.
Yeah.
Right? But I was at Vanderbilt Neurology. We were working with Vanderbilt Neurology. There was I can't remember the Centennial or something. There's like the Cleveland Clinic was involved, the Charlie Foundation's involved. And I go to this neurologist, I'm like, yo, dude, look at these ingredients. Like, I'm a nutritional therapist. Like, I'm not saying I'm a doctor, and at the time I knew way less. This was like 8-9 years ago. And I was like, I'm pretty sure this is like toxic. And I show him the ingredients. Word for word, he looks at the bottle and he goes, huh, I never thought to check that. And I was like, I'm looking around and like I have goosebumps even when anytime I tell this story, I get goosebumps. And I'm like, fucking nobody is coming to save us.
No, there's no adults in the room.
This is a charade. There's no adults in the room. I was like, I can watch this guy. This guy's having an emotional reaction to what I just said to him. And the most authentic thing he can come up with is like, huh, I never thought to check that. And I'm watching his mind and I'm like, oh my God. And that was when I went down the rabbit hole. I actually, I had been introduced to Rob Wolf and I asked Rob, and I'm forever grateful for Rob for this, but Rob was the first one that was like, yo, stop reading people's books. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you're reading Mark Sisson's book and Dave Asprey's book and Rob Wolf's book and Abel James's book and whoever. And like, I love a lot of these guys. They're super cool. Like, and now I'm lucky enough to know most of them, all of them really personally. And he was like, yeah, man, you got to figure out how the human body works. And that was where Rob started recommending because Rob's a biochemist by trade before all his health and wellness stuff. And he just recommended a bunch of textbooks and stuff. And I started diving in. And eventually I made a baby formula for Savannah in my kitchen using food dehydrators, food processors, my oven. And I was using like paleo superfoods and combining them in different ways. Got it cleared by Vanderbilt Neurology. They were like, this is actually amazing. Like, we're going to put this in this baby's G-tube. So we started feeding her that formula. And then like I was falling out of love with the music industry. I had read The 4 Hour Work Week, physical products.
Let's go.
Yeah. So I basically just like took that formula and added a bunch of collagen protein to it and started selling it to CrossFitters.
And I do want to say physical products in this scenario, I think make the most sense, and they're completely necessary. We need them in the world. A+ for anybody who wants to do it. It's the people who sit down, I want to be an entrepreneur. And then they go look for a physical product to build. I'm like, nah, dog, that ain't the way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you don't even know product market fit. You don't know all of this stuff. And it's 10 times harder.
Yeah, absolutely. What I found too in entrepreneurship is like, it kind of has a stigma or a bad reputation, but one of the fastest ways for very little money, if you want to learn the ins and outs of e-commerce entrepreneurship, go start a drop shipping store.
For sure.
And get it to successful and learn how to run ads and learn how to find the right product and learn how to do copy.
Because then you just have to do like the marketing side of it so you can learn that one skill while you're not putting any money down on inventory. So like, that's my whole thing is, I think so much of entrepreneurship is actually about, and this is like straight up in your alley, but it's so much more about the mindset and the reality of the world and how you look at the world than it is about making money or like selling something to somebody. And so like one of my favorite quotes is by the guy whose hat I'm wearing, Jack Butcher, and he's just like, make $1 on the internet. So people approach me all the fucking time and nobody takes this advice of like, what should I do to like start a company? Well, I'm like, make $1 on the internet.
Yeah.
Sell something.
Yeah.
Don't get a ton of inventory. Don't go into debt. Don't take a loan from your family and friends. Make $1 on the internet.
Yeah.
Cool. Like gamification award won. Now what? Okay. Make $100 on the internet. Yeah. Make $1,000 on the internet. Make $1 on the internet doing something you legitimately love and care
100%,
about.
100%. Dude, I told this story on a podcast. I know you listened to a couple podcasts with me and Jackie, who's like we call her my right-hand gal at Clovis. And we did a couple podcasts together. And I was telling this story about, there was a guy he was buying things at yard sales and selling them on eBay. And he was making like $500 a week on eBay. And he's like, this is great. I'm making an extra $2,000 a month, whatever. And like, no matter what he did, he's just making $500 a week. And he was like frustrated that he couldn't make more than $500 a week. So he created an online course, how to make $500 a week, yard sailing on eBay. And he sold over $1 million of that course. Everybody out there, everybody listening right now has some kind of unique ability or skill that's special to them or something that they're deeply passionate about. And that's what I was telling you, my whole thesis of like self-actualization is like, if every dollar that's coming to you in your life is a direct result of authentic self-expression, this is where you go back in time and you hear all these cliches when your guidance counselor at 15 years old is like, if you choose a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. It's like, oh yeah, I can kind of live with this cubicle job. I think like The Office, right? The TV show, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Maybe I can do this for 35 years and grin and bear it. Like, but if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. What I just described to me is really the true statement of never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
Do something that is an authentic expression of self and get paid for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it's a developmental period. Like even someone like for me who kind of grew up in an environment of like, I knew when I was 10, I was going to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know what the problem I was going to solve was. Because I wanted to have big impact and I wanted to have something that was super fun and that I enjoyed and like got to be a lifestyle that I wanted. And I just didn't know what it was. And I was always like playing around with different stuff. But it's like, just take the first step, because that is the process in which you get to start to shift your reality. Like step into something little, like, and then you can work your way. And again, some people can just switch immediately into like, this is the perfect day for me.
Yeah.
But like, you're also not static. And so your perfect day is going to change. You're like, what is absolutely in alignment is going to totally change, like over time as you grow and move. This is into the kind of like theory of knowledge, theory of truth. One issue I have with current systems is we create social rules of knowledge that we believe to be static, and we try and learn things statically. And that feels like we're like, that wasn't what made us get here as humans. That wasn't what made us like evolve. And honestly feel like we're losing this muscle where we assume the static reality, because like, you know, if you go back through all tribes, like it's non-static. Even just the idea of hunting, consistently complex, consistently moving. And there's a Dune quote, I'm going to paraphrase it. It's something like, a system can never be understood when it's stopped. It can only be understood in the process of the system. And I feel like so much of our medical system and so much of our health system is understood in these snapshots of when this study was done, when this evidence was created.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've heard Tim Ferriss talk about this, and I could be totally butchering this. I think he says he attributes it to Winston Churchill, but somebody, no, I'm sorry. Someone said the quote, I can't remember who said this quote. I wish I had it. But if you brought Winston Churchill back from the dead, the only thing he would recognize is the public education system. And you're like, that's a problem.
That's a huge problem.
That's a legit problem. And I run into this all the time with credentials and mainstream medicine and the calories in, calories out, like any of the hate that's happening online. I had I shared this with Zach Tellender, because Zach did the Liver King thing, and it was like all these videos about charlatans. Like, what is a charlatan? Like sacred knowledge, in-group, out-group, my way is the only way, very aggressive, they're always on the offensive, you know, that kind of thing. And I was trying to help him see that like someone like Liver King, it's very easy to point at Liver King and say charlatan. The biggest charlatan is mainstream medicine. And mainstream fitness and mainstream nutrition and dietitians that are literally like prescribing diets that cause diabetes. Like, you have to look at this whole thing and say, well, it's in the conscious collective, let's say, like if you get enough people behind an idea and they all agree this is the one way, then everyone else becomes a charlatan, and you can't do one layer deep of thinking and say, actually, this is the ultimate charlatanism. It's like, this is evidence-based. This is what the science says. We don't care if the science is corrupt. We don't care if the science is flawed, like Huberman and Jack Kruse talked about. Nobody cares about the thing. It's just like, there's enough people saying this is the one way and enough propaganda behind it. And this is where you have guys like me that we have thousands of people. Like, there's over 10,000 people in my private Facebook group right now. Some of them have Clovis tattoos. They have lost over 100 pounds. They've started their own business. They've left an abusive relationship. Like, this paradigm of thinking, this philosophy of thinking has completely transformed their lives. But if you have someone that's like, my identity is my credentials from this higher education university that I believe in, I'm giving my authority to, they give their authority away to this organization, they will look at someone like me, and instead of saying, what is this guy doing right? They'll say, quackery, misinformation, this guy is dangerous. And you go, well, where, how can you look at what's happening here with all these people and say that this is dangerous? And that's where we were talking earlier about like online hate. It doesn't resonate. It's not a problem for me. It's a problem for a lot of influencers, because I have to end up trying to explain. It's like, well, this Mr. PhD whatever says that like Justin is spreading misinformation, right? And I have to then explain subjective reality and say, listen, the actual organization that handed you your credentials and told you, you believe our truth, you're now good enough to go on the world and teach this thing, I don't believe in their perceived authority. So we're playing an entirely different game. It doesn't matter. It's like...
you cannot fit reality into a lab.
Exactly.
Like, it is literally just this like picture perfect thing where they're trying to control for as many variables as possible, but they can't control for all the variables. And a lot of the variables they're controlling for are actually the detriment that influences the study. And even in every study, like they're statistically significant at best. They are not causal. They're usually doing multivariate regressions when the entail of the actual variables is infinity, is randomness. And they don't take into account that like, it's not calories in, calories out. It's not just like this is an easy thing. It's not a static system.
Yeah, no, not at all. And that's where I try to, like, we teach calories in, calories out as energy balance. This is fundamentally flawed because, like, we are essentially looking at food, substrate, anything that's coming in the system for energy is only potential energy. That's it. It's not energy in, energy out. It's potential energy in, energy out. The system itself, how your metabolism takes substrate and turns it into ATP or whatever, or stores it as tissue, whatever your metabolism is doing, the function of the metabolic system determines the energy out. The quality of the food coming in impacts the energy out. Whether you're eating your lunch in the sunshine or under fluorescent light determines the energy out. There are hundreds of factors that go into how much of the food substrate is going to be actually converted into energy or stored as fat or stored as muscle or go into repairing bone or tissue or whatever, right? The metabolic system is what determines the amount of potential energy that will actually become energy. And this is where people got really fucked with calories in, calories out. It's just like, you're assuming that everything that comes into your body is automatically energy. Like, there's a caloric content to this can, this aluminum can. If I eat it, there's potential energy in there.
Yeah.
If we light it on fire or put it in a furnace,
burn.
it's some amount of energy is going to come off this thing. You know, so it's like, it's just a really, and the fact that people will not look away from this thing, or again, if we look at like the whole, the mainstream, it's like the old, I don't know who it's attributed to, but whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect, right?
Yeah.
We have been told to eat less. We have been told that food quality doesn't matter, that all calories are equal, just eat fewer calories than you burn since the 1950s. Depending on the study, 88 to 90% of people, adults in America, have at least one marker of clinical metabolic dysfunction. 74% of adults are either overweight or obese. This is a fully failed experiment. And the only answer from the mainstream, everyone is idiots. They don't know how to count calories. They are slobs. They never get off the couch. It's like, yo, fitness is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Everyone has tried jogging and counting calories. People have tried Barry's Boot Camp or Orange Theory or P90X or whatever. And that's the stories that I hear, right? The people that come to me that are training 90 minutes a day, 6 days a week, and they're eating 1,000 calories. And they're still overweight and their health is destroyed. Their hair is falling out. They have no libido. Their nails crack. I had one woman that had gastric bypass surgery, Cassie, and she came to me because she explained it as like the gastric bypass surgery failed. Like, she got the gastric bypass, didn't lose any weight, started gaining weight back. And because she could eat so little, she was so malnourished that her molars were cracking when she was eating food.
Damn.
And she's like, I've been sold a lie here. And then she comes to me and we feed her more food. I had to reverse diet her very slowly because her stomach's so small, and she loses 60 pounds of fat.
Yeah. I mean, it's so crazy too, because it's the, I don't tend to believe that like the pharmaceutical company are evil. I don't see it as like this huge evil corporation. I don't believe doctors are evil. But one thing I witnessed within interviewing probably like 200 to 400 physicians is, I don't think there was a single one who was like, I believe my patient can stick to a diet. I believe my patient can do this thing.
Yeah.
Like, the whole thought is this apathy that humans don't have the capacity to like make good decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like such a tragedy. And I think that when you know, we have third-party candidates and people are like, oh, like they're just gonna pull the vote, like there's no shot, we give up, like we give it up, like it's this narrative of this cynicism that is like cynicism that becomes default truth. It's like, if I have a cynical perspective, it's more accurate, I'm more reasonable.
Yeah.
And like there's a I forget, I just heard this recently, but it was like, this quote was basically like, optimists get rich, pessimists are usually right. And people are so much more likely to see, it's so much more socially acceptable in this world to be critical, or to complain, or to project suffering. And I'm just so curious about that, because it seems, this is something Austin and I've talked about a lot. It's like, and one of the reasons I love Tim Ferriss is he has this question, and not that he's the best person at not suffering, but what would this look like if it were easy?
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, like everything that I'm doing, no matter how and this is the game of what, if we're online, right? I'm not putting health and wellness information out into the world to try to disrupt the mainstream. I'm not trying to debate anybody. I'm not trying to prove that I'm right. I think that my truth is 100% subjective. Now, I have a lot of experience in the world and a lot of evidence. When I share my truth with other people and they adopt the way that I'm living my life, their life improves, right? So I can look at this and say, okay, great. Does that mean that this is the only objective truth? This is the way to do it? No. And that's why all of my health and wellness programming always starts with personal development. I have people standing in a mirror naked, looking themselves in the eyes and saying, I love you 10 times. And I'm trying to help them take back their own personal authority. And a lot of the work that I do right now is with people that are either recovering from some kind of diet. They're recovering vegan, they're recovering carnivore, they're recovering keto, they're recovering fasting, right? Oh, I was doing 20-hour fasts every single day and now like my testosterone's in the 200s or whatever, right? It's all these people are coming to me to recover from the fact that they outsourced their authority to somebody else.
Yo, thank you guys so much for your time and attention. I hope you enjoyed this small taste of the podcast. This is now going into the paid portion, and I hope that you liked what you got and you feel inclined to head to skmp.supercast.com or click the link that's in the description. You can listen to this full episode and many others. And I just want to leave you with an idea that nothing is free. In every single transaction, there is a buyer and a seller. And if you're not paying for something, I would be careful, because you might just be that which is being sold.